All right, thank you so much for joining me for the GRE writing strategies. That's what we're going to do today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my document here and we're going to run the slideshow. And I will start to share my screen right now. Can you see that? Go ahead and give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for verbally confirming. All right, great. So again, we're talking about GRE analytical writing strategies. I'm going to talk about the GRE specifically. Of course, that is the graduate school test that almost all graduate schools require. There are some specialty graduate schools that require a different test, but most of the graduate schools do use the GRE. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. But keep in mind that a lot of these ideas are relevant for a lot of the standardized tests out there, especially ones that give you a time limit. In this case, you can have a 30-minute time limit. So the ideas I give you can apply to final exams, midterms, anywhere where you're having to write something in a large scale, meaning a couple of paragraphs or more, and you have a limited time to do it. So without further ado, let me jump into it. I did say it's going to speak specifically about the GRE, so just know that the things I talk about will be specific to the GRE, but can be applied to other things. And you'll see here that the GRE does measure several different things, but I'm going to focus only on the analytical writing piece of it. That's what I'm doing today. Next week, I'm going to focus on the math section or quantitative reasoning. But today, I'm going to talk about analytical writing. Notice that there are two different things that you're going to be required to do. One is an analysis of an issue, and another is an analysis of argument. There are two very different things, and they are separately timed. Each of them will take 30 minutes. Keep in mind, if you're taking the GRE, that analytical writing section will always come first on the test. If you've done any kind of research, you know that the GRE is a very long test. It's about 4 hours of your time. To be in one place doing all of that is big. That's difficult. But keep in mind that when you do it, the thing I'm about to talk about, analytical writing, will always come first. So you can have that expectation set. As I mentioned, I'm going to talk about two different areas. The first one is the analyze an issue. So there's a little bit about the writing section in general, but I'm going to focus on the analyze an issue section. Now, remember that they don't really require specific knowledge. At least that's what they say. And it's generally true. They don't require they don't require specific knowledge. What they are really testing you about is your ability to analyze, to understand what's given to you, and then break it down. So let's jump into that analyze an issue section. So it's going to be on an issue of general interest. Another way of saying it could be anything, followed by specific instructions. And you need to develop an argument with reasons and, I'm going to underline this for you, examples to support your views. Anytime you're writing this analyze an issue essay, you have to have examples. All right, the second paragraph talks about the argument, which is the other one I'm going to do later. So we'll jump to the third or final paragraph, and it talks about how both of them really are complementary, because what you're trying to do is take a position and then provide supporting evidence. Let me show you how this works. Here's an example that comes from the GRE test makers themselves called the ETS. And here's an example question that you might see. It could be something like, governments should place few, if any, restrictions on scientific research and development. And then it's going to give you a prompt, meaning a thing to contemplate when you're answering, or a question to answer. In this case, the prompt says, write a response in which you discuss the extent to which you agree or disagree with the recommendation and explain your reasoning. for the position you take. In developing and supporting your position, describe specific circumstances in which adopting the recommendation would or would not be advantageous, and explain how these examples shape your position. So again, when you read that, you can see the word examples mentioned several times. That's going to be critical. You have to use supporting examples. Another thing you'll see is whether you agree or disagree, or the extent to which you agree or disagree. You have to take a position. All right. So I'm going to have a little bit of audience participation. So the government should place few, if any, restrictions on scientific research and development. Do you think that's true or not? Like, do you agree with that statement or do you disagree with it? And give me a couple of reasons why. Go ahead and unmute and let me know.
Government should place few. I guess I agree, cause I mean,
So you're generally for research. Is that correct? You're generally for research. You like letting people do research.
yes,
Why is that? Because what?
because I feel like people should know about like certain things that involves with science, and like I just think that like people should do their research about certain things they want to know about, not just,
Okay. Now I want you to think of examples. Maybe for you, because you're talking about like medical research, maybe you can give an example of how we have come up with, for example, a vaccine, or we've come
Yeah, I
up
was
with
just about to say something like that.
like a breakout thing. So talk to me about some supporting examples. Pick one medical example that you feel strongly about and tell me about it.
Um, well, like you said about like the vaccine, people should know like what's like what it's gonna do, like what it's gonna help if they do take it, or like something like, because the question is um like why we I mean, will we let somebody, I mean, is it okay if they put a restriction on scientific research? So like I'm saying like basically for the vaccine, they should let people do research about it, because they should know what the shot is for and why they need to have it.
Okay.
So
And right now you're looking at it from the perspective of a person taking it. I want you to change your thinking and think about it from the standpoint of people doing the research. So again, this is about government
oh
restricting companies, right? Or
mm-hmm.
researchers or PhDs in universities. It's talking about them being restricted. So that's where you need to think about. It's not just like a consumer, like, oh, I'm going to take the vaccine. I'm thinking more like what scientific research has been done in order to help society. So you need to think of some examples of that. For example, it wouldn't be COVID because we're still in development, but maybe something like, I don't know, the flu vaccine. That's where scientific research and development took place. And because there were no restrictions or very few restrictions, we were able to come up with a solid vaccine. Maybe you could talk about COVID and say, because the government did not restrict COVID research, we were also came up with an emergency COVID solution vaccine. You could say that, but what you need to
Okay.
do is always come up with examples.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so far so good.
Yes.
Now I want to challenge you.
Oh.
Why might a government want to put restrictions on scientific research?
I feel
About the
like
kinds of research that are being done that are controversial. What's happening right now that's
I feel
controversial?
like they don't want like everybody to know about it yet, I guess, or like um for them to do that, I feel like it's just they're not ready to release it yet. Like it's just only certain people that can have it at this point, and like probably in the future they will, but I don't know. Like I guess I just want certain people to know about it, but not everybody. They don't want it for like the world to know yet. So it's only certain people that's like with the like in the government with the government people, they can look at it. But I guess if it gets out, it can be a problem. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good start. What I was wanting to have you think more about was things where the government might want to get involved. For example, you're doing nursing, right? So you're doing a lot of science classes. Is that correct?
Yes.
So one thing that's happening there is like cloning, right? Cloning sheep, cloning monkeys, cloning animals. Maybe there's a place where you say, well, hold on, the government should restrict scientific research because it's not moral, it's not right to clone animals, or even, let's
Okay.
go
Yeah.
even further, it's not right to clone humans. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there could be a place where scientific research should be restricted. Do you get my drift?
Okay.
So that's kind of why they're asking this question, is they want you to give an example of where government should go ahead and let it go, like make it a vaccine. But sometimes maybe the government should not, because it's not right to clone animals and humans. So the government needs to step in and restrict research.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I understand what you're saying now.
Okay, great, good. So this is just a warm up. So no need to worry about whether you got it right or wrong. We're just talking and kind of understanding what's happened. So
Okay.
now that we've gone through that example, I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategies you want to use for this type of question. And here we go. The first strategy is to take a stand. When you're being asked about an issue, you need to take a stand. You need to say yes or no, I agree or disagree. So make sure you do that. That's bullet point number 2. Brainstorm a list for both ideas, agree and disagree. So I know that you had given an example about that would agree that governments don't need to restrict, because you're saying, well, they develop great vaccines, they're helping people out. That's a good thing. Yes. But you also want to brainstorm a list of things that would be disagreeable, like the example of human cloning. So you want to brainstorm that list because you need to know both sides. So again, number 1, you want to always bring about examples. And I've shown you a couple of possibilities here: personal examples, current events, historical examples. If you're really into history and you know what's happened in the past, like developing a vaccine for the flu, those kinds of things. Or it could be literary, from books and novels and publications that you can quote or talk about. The third bullet says, find the list that connects best with you. What is the easiest thing to write a paper about? What's easier for you to defend, right? And then you make a choice, either agree or disagree. So Amaya, I'm going to ask you, for that question, which would you choose? Would you choose to agree or disagree about the government being hands off?
You saying like, do I agree or disagree about them putting a restriction on certain things?
Yeah, this whole example about governments should place
Yeah.
very few restrictions.
Um,
You think that's true or
I
not?
think I think I disagree. And now that I'm just thinking about it, like I understand like if like for example, like you said about the cloning and stuff, but at the end of the day, I feel like people should still know about those things. Um even if it's right or wrong, because like if you don't let them know and then somebody else find out, like they do their own research about it, but they not actually a actual scientist, but they do it on their own, they start releasing it out and it is true, then things can really get out of hand and stuff like that. So I feel like they shouldn't have restrictions at a certain point. I think I disagree. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So good. So you want to make a choice one way or the other. And I'm glad you went ahead and did that. The next thing you want to do, and again, this take a stand, you only have 30 minutes from the moment you hear what the topic is. You're only going to have 30 minutes to write a whole paper. So this is, again, great practice for like midterms, final exams, where if you're asked open-ended questions, this is a great practice to try to answer open-ended questions. So the second thing you're going to do out of this very precious, limited 30 minutes is you're going to summarize your choice briefly. And you're going to do that by writing your opening paragraph. A couple of key things to think about is keep it short and sweet. This is not a time to start running off, and just starting typing a bunch of nonsense. Short and sweet, to the point, don't waste time, just summarize. The next thing you want to do is develop your supporting paragraphs. I recommend between 3 to 4 supporting paragraphs, depending on how fast you write and how competent a writer you are. And if you have to, you can go to 2 if you really feel uncomfortable writing. But I would really like to see 3 or 4 supporting paragraphs. How does it work? Well, you've got 20 minutes to do this. I recommend you do a supporting example, number 1, and then another supporting example, number 2, for your second paragraph. That gives you 2 strong elements to say, yeah, I've got a good reason why I agree or disagree, and here are my 2 best reasons. After you've done that, you are then welcome to take that third paragraph and use it to explore an opposite idea, which you are then going to strike down. You're going to prove that it's wrong by saying how, in fact, there are holes in the argument, that it's really not that important or not that big of a deal as people make it out to be, so that you're really giving a third supporting concept to your essay. All right, you're shooting down the reasons why people would disagree with you. Finally, the last thing you need to do is clean it up. This is the last 3 minutes of your very precious and limited 30-minute time frame. What are you going to do during these last 3 minutes? First of all, and most importantly, you need to stop writing. A lot of people just write until time's up. That's not going to serve you well because they do look at how clean your writing is. And what I mean by that is there shouldn't be obvious typos. There shouldn't be obvious spelling errors, grammar problems. Your word choice needs to be on point, and there should not be very much repetition. So all of that good English writing skills needs to be present in your paper. That's why you take the last 3 minutes to clean it up, to make it look polished. So if it doesn't look polished, it's going to really hurt your score. Any questions so far about the strategies? Give me a thumbs up if you're good to go, or you can come off mute.
No.
Okay, great. Now, it's very important that you practice ahead of time. And the good thing is the GRE test makers, the ETS, they have actually produced a bunch of examples. So you can actually go to this website and grab as many examples as you want and practice. We have that government example I showed you, right? Governments should place few, if any, restrictions on scientific research and development. But there are many other ones, and I just wanted to, again, give you some examples. You're welcome to copy down this URL. But for the purposes of our conversation, I want to tell you about a few more. Here's another one. The best way to teach is to praise positive actions and ignore negative ones. So, Amaya, tell me what you think about that one. Do you agree with that statement? What is your first reaction? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Give me some examples.
Like when you say the best way to teach is to praise positive actions and ignore negative ones, meaning like, are you saying like the teacher should always be positive at all times or something? Like,
Yes, that's right.
okay,
That's what the statement is saying, and then you have to decide, do you agree or not?
okay. I agree. If I'm thinking about like what this actually means the right way. I agree on that. Like, cause for example, if something goes wrong in the class, the teacher should always stay positive and find a best solution to, you know, to fix that problem.
Okay, great. Now I want you to think about ways in which maybe you might want to disagree, because remember, we make lists of both agree.
Okay.
Why might you disagree with this? What might be wrong with this statement?
Um, ignoring negative ones can, I feel like it can lead ignoring negative ones, you can, I feel like in the class it can lead to like something bigger if you ignore negative ones.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I like what you said. That's a great example of how you might want to disagree with the statement, because the statement does say exactly that. It says ignore negative ones. Can you imagine ignoring, like in high school? Maybe not in college, but maybe in college, but even like in high school where people are more rowdy. Can you imagine a teacher just ignoring stuff that's going on in the classroom that's going bad? Can you
No.
imagine how that might work out? Are they
Yeah, I can.
are they gonna be able to teach if there's negative stuff happening and they're just like, all right, everyone, this is gonna work out fine. Everybody be happy. Is that gonna work?
No.
Right. So you can see how there could be an argument made for disagreeing with that statement. Now, the beauty is for this kind of essay writing, you can pick either one. You just have to defend your position. So that's why you make a list of both, because you might be like, oh, wow, actually, I think disagreeing is more strong. So I'm going to argue for disagreeing because it gives me better examples. But again, you want to use examples. So I want you to now come up with one example. It can be, like I said, from personal, current events, historical events, or literary events. I want you to use that example that I mentioned in the previous slide. What example can you use either to agree or disagree with this statement?
Example for to disagree, ignore negative ones. Like for example, in high school one day, two students was arguing in a class and we had a substitute. So I guess she didn't really know what to do at that point, and them going back and forth led to a fight. So it was her like by herself. Instead of her grabbing the teacher when it first started, another teacher or somebody that's out in the hall near her grabbing them while they was arguing, them, they could have stopped it before it had led into a fight. So I guess that's why I disagree to ignore negative ones, because if you do, then it can lead to something bigger like a fight.
Great. Yeah, that's a really good answer. Again, you're using personal examples, and that's wonderful. And again, you can use other things like, again, literary examples. Like you might be like, well, I've recently, I don't know, read an article or read a book. You can even just be an article, or I saw on Facebook, something like that. You can say that sort of stuff. I saw on Facebook there's this new thing out about parenting where parents are always going to address what's happening in front of them, because if they don't change the behavior of negative things going on with their kids are just going to keep doing negative things.
Oh
So
yeah.
you could even say that, right? It could have to do with parenting, not just like high school students. Now we can talk about little kids. You could talk about college. What is your college experience? When did you enjoy your teachers the most? When did you learn the most? Was it from praise of positive actions? Or did a teacher who ignored negative ones make it hard for you to learn? So again, it's a great opportunity to use personal examples. All right, I'm going to throw out another one for you. Governments should offer college and university education free of charge to all students. What do you think? Agree or disagree?
I agree.
Right, of course, you're a college student, so of course you're like, hey, I like that. I want that.
Yes, I agree.
But tell me
I feel
why.
like they should offer that because oh wait, it has to be an example.
Yes,
Because
yes,
some
definitely.
students, uh, certain students come out, like for example, some of them come from a different state and they be charged more, like a lot, like way more than, and then they have to give back. And I feel like, um, well, well, yeah, I think this is an example. Some students come from state and they have to be charged more, and I feel like that it shouldn't be that way. I don't know. Yeah.
Good, good answer. And then what about people who, in fact, can't even afford college?
Yeah.
Like that's a bigger thing, right? Because
Yes.
if governments were able to offer it free of charge, and all those people who were like, man, I can't even afford to go to college, they could come. Is that not a good thing in your opinion?
Yes, that's very I like that. I should have said that because a lot of people around this world actually do want to go to college and want to get a degree in something, but they can't afford it. And I feel like everybody should be able to attend college for something they really want to do and don't have to worry about money.
Great, great, great. Okay, wonderful. Now I want you to stop and argue the opposite. Because again, like I said, it's always good to know what the enemy, quote unquote, the opposition is thinking. So what could people be thinking who disagree with this statement?
Mm,
What could be a problem with this statement?
Um, I guess for the people who like some people just like, for example, students come to college just to have fun, like college experience, like more a party than learning. So
Oh, yeah, you hit on the perfect example, right? If we offer this thing for free, we're gonna get everybody showing up. And that's not a good thing, maybe, right? We're gonna get the people who were fighting in your high school class to come show up. We're gonna people who are dropping out of high school just be like, well, college is free. I'm gonna show up. And then they're gonna cause problems. They're gonna have, you could have bad elements. You could have drugs, gang warfare, penetrating all the colleges and universities because there's absolutely no cost to it. It's just like high school, it's a free education. Anybody and everybody is going to show up. So that could cause problems, right?
yes.
Excellent. What else could be a problem?
Um, let me see. If I mean, if I disagree, but I know I said, like you said, everybody will come and stuff, but I'm trying to figure out another example I can say for that.
That's
Um,
okay. Don't worry about it. It's not a
okay.
problem. One other thing I was thinking about was just that, governments are never free. That's why we are taxed, right? We have to pay taxes. So governments are there to collect everyone's money and then spend it in the best way. So we have to ask ourselves, is this the best use of the government's money? Because it ends up being my money, taxpayer money. So my question then becomes, how is the government going to get all of that money to pay for everybody's college education? Where is that money going to come from?
Oh yeah, okay.
So that would be another possible problem with this example. So let's just pretend you were going to agree with this statement. You would come up with two supporting paragraphs that say, yes, this is why we should do it, right? Because we can support people who can't afford it and people who are out of state no longer have to worry. But we also have to say why we're going to counter the problem of anybody being able to show up. So maybe it means we have to have um, better programs in place to help people who are encountering social problems like drugs, alcohol, gangsterism, like all of those things that are the problems in our society we need to make sure all of our freshmen or all of our college students are getting help in those areas, right? So that could be one way in which you offset the possible problem. Is that making sense to you? Is this
Yes.
kind of what we're doing? Okay, great. Another one might be the luxuries and conveniences of contemporary life prevent people from developing into truly strong and independent individuals, right? It means we're so full of luxury that we've gotten soft. We're just soft.
Yeah.
So then you have to decide, okay, do I agree or disagree and why? So again, giving you different examples. Another one might be in any field of inquiry, meaning when you're studying something, the beginner is more likely than the expert to make important contributions. So again, it's just a statement. There's no right and wrong. You think about whether you agree or disagree and you build your case using examples.
Mm,
All right, is all this pretty clear? Any questions?
no, that was great.
All right, great. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you practice. So, time yourself is a good thing usually, but sometimes you don't want to. So you've got this 30-minute quantity of time to answer the question. There are times you shouldn't use a timer. And I feel like that's in the initial stages when you're understanding yourself and how you answer questions and you're just getting started. You need a barometer to see how quickly you can do things and still do them well. That's when you don't want to use a timer. When you're trying to figure out how to do things well. But then after you know how to do things well, then you start to kick in the timer and then you simulate testing conditions and you get it graded to really be accurate to what that time limit is changing about what you can do. So that's when you start implementing the timer. I would encourage you to use our writing and communication tutors. You can go to that website, MyWC Online, and you can actually get connected with communication tutors who can help to read your essay and help to kind of grade your essay and help you, maybe not grading so much as helping you to write a better essay or helping you to improve upon your essay. Dr. Schweitzer is actually overseeing the Writing and Communication Center. That's her email and phone number. If you want to get in touch with her, she can hook you up. Again, it's a free service for WSSU students, so take advantage of it. The second thing I want to mention about how to do the practicing the right way is to record or time your steps. So you remember I gave you an outline on what to do. Well, now you have to figure out how long does it really take me to do the outline step? How long does it take me to do the main body paragraphs step? And how long does it really take me to edit? And then you have to rework and say, well, in what areas can I speed up the process? And what areas do I need to readjust the time? Because the times I gave you were just estimates on average, but you've got to adjust so that it works for you. The third thing I would say is make sure to put it on your schedule. Once you have something on your calendar, you're more likely to do it. An essay a day keeps the doctor away. You want to try to do an essay a day so that you're really getting into this, especially as you get closer to your GRE test date. But, give yourself breaks too. My suggestion is a once a day, Monday to Friday, or 2 essays a day, Saturday and Sunday, especially as you're getting, within 2 months of your test date. You want to be doing a bunch of essays, so you're very, very skilled at them by the time your test date shows up. So those are my tips for how to practice effectively. All right, now we're going to jump into analysis of an argument. First, we've got that writing section again. It's not about specific content knowledge, it's about how you analyze. And jumping into the argument piece, that's the second paragraph down below. You see that it's about logical soundness of the argument. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about analyzing the logical soundness. So you can see how this is very different from the analysis of issue. It's also going to involve, as you can see in the last paragraph, Evaluating someone else's argument. You need to look at the claims, meaning the evidence provided, right? So you're going to evaluate all of that to figure out, is this legit or not so legit? So it's no longer about agreeing or disagreeing with a statement. It's about finding out how well somebody presented their argument. Let's get into an example a little bit better. But first, I want you to understand that every time you're given one of these analysis of arguments, it is going to be slightly different. And that's very important to note. You have to make sure to read your test topic and the specific task directions carefully, because it is going to change a little bit. So just keep that in mind. However, it does hit the same general things, and that's what I'm going to tell you now, is to give you some tips on how to do it. Practicing is very, very important. There are over 50 examples at this website, which is the official GRE website. This is an example, so you know what we're dealing with. It might read something like this. The following is part of a memo from the president of Humana University. Last year, the number of students who enrolled in online degree programs offered by nearby Omni University increased by 50%. During the same year, Omni showed a significant decrease from prior years in expenditures for dormitory and classroom space, most likely because online instruction takes place via the internet. In contrast, over the past 3 years, enrollment at Humana University has failed to grow, and the cost of maintaining buildings has increased. Thus, to increase enrollment and solve the problem of budget deficits at Humana University, we should initiate and actively promote online degree programs like those at Omni. Now, the question or the prompt is, write a response in which you examine the stated or unstated assumptions of the argument. Be sure to explain how the argument depends on these assumptions and what the implications are for the argument if the assumptions prove unwarranted. Well, Amaya, do you understand all that? Do you have any questions about what this all means?
Yeah, I was just a little confused. Not that confused, but like,
Tell me what makes you feel confused.
so like, what will the argument be about? Like, will it be about because of the students is online? Like,
Say your question again, please.
like I was just wondering, like, what will the argument be about this example? Like, will it be about the students online, and that's why it's increasing or decreasing, or like?
Yeah, there's a couple of things going on. The first thing you have to understand is you have to understand the passage. That's critical. The passage talks about two different universities, Omni and Humana. And this memo is coming from the Humana president. So the Humana president is very concerned that Omni and Humana are different. They're going in different directions. Omni is doing great, Humana is doing badly. So that's why he's writing this memo, because he's very concerned. And you can see why he's concerned, because Omni has increased enrollment in online and decreased the costs, right? The expenditures. However, Humana has increased the costs. So they are now arguing that they should promote online degree programs, just like Omni. Does that make better sense now?
Yes, it does.
So then what it asks is, what are the assumptions? What is being assumed about things? Like, for example, one assumption could be, well, Humana and Omni can operate the same way. Like, Humana is just as well equipped to do online as Omni is. That's the assumption, meaning the thing that they assume is true, but we don't really know. Because, you know, Humana has to have all the infrastructure, all the people, all the professors who can do online. They have to have all that in place in order to copy Omni. And so that's an assumption. So that's an example. So that's how you're kind of going about it, is figuring out what assumptions are in this particular argument. All right. So let's talk about strategies that you want to use for this type of question. You're still going to do these steps, just like in analyze an issue. You're still going to take a stand, summarize your choice, develop supporting paragraphs, and clean it up. But the take a stand part is going to be a little different because you're not taking a stand about agreeing or disagreeing. You're taking a stand about, is the argument good or not so good? Is it strong or is it flawed? All right. And I've written a few very important questions. What is the structure? Where is the evidence? What assumptions have been made? Very similar to assumptions are what holes or gaps of knowledge are in the argument. Another way to say it is what would break the argument. The fifth and sixth one are really important. What information is missing? What data, surveys, or studies would help us? And the next one is what experts, scientists, experts in the field, reliable, famous people would help? Finally, what evidence is missing that we really need? And how can this argument be strengthened or weakened? So these are the kinds of things you need to be focusing on. And again, depending on what exact question you get, you might have one or more of these being asked of you. But essentially, they kind of boil down to the same thing. You're really looking at the argument. What is the evidence leading to a conclusion? And what assumptions have been made? Okay, that's the key thing. Evidence, assumption, conclusion. And then you just find the holes in the argument and talk about them. Let's give you another example. The following appeared in a magazine article about planning for retirement. Clearview should be a top choice for anyone seeking a place to retire because it has spectacular natural beauty and a consistent climate. Another advantage is that housing costs in Clearview have fallen significantly during the past year, and taxes remain lower than those in neighboring towns. Moreover, Clearview's mayor promises many new programs to improve schools, streets, and public services. And best of all, retirees in Clearview can also expect excellent health care as they grow older, since the number of physicians in the area is far greater than the national average. Now, the question is, write a response in which you discuss what specific evidence is needed to evaluate the argument and explain how the evidence would weaken or strengthen the argument. So why don't you tell me what you think? What evidence do we need to be able to evaluate whether this is really a good argument or not?
Let me see. Some evidence like in the paragraph.
Not really in the paragraph. They're talking more about what evidence do we need in general to prove the points. For example, it says in the paragraph, retirees can expect excellent health care because the number of physicians in the area is greater than the national average. What evidence do we need to prove that?
Evidence, I guess like, let me see like how I can say like, so basically how they can prove that it is a number of physicians in the area.
Yeah, how do we know that the number of physicians in that city is better than or greater than the national average? We need,
I guess compare.
yeah, we need statistics to compare. So I'm getting at the answer of being statistics. We need data. We need a study that shows the number of physicians in Clearview and the national average. What else do we need? So you see what I'm saying, right? That's the evidence we need. What other evidence do we need to prove some of the other things that are said in this paragraph? How about the advantage of housing costs are cheaper in Clearview during the past year? What do we need to be able to prove that or make it stronger or weaker?
Say that again.
Well, in the passage, they say that the housing cost has fallen, so it's cheaper to live there. What evidence do we need to either prove or disprove that statement?
Basically like all the stuff that needs to be paid for the housing. Um like basically like a paper or something that's showing why it costs less and proving to people that it is, like, I guess on paper.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. What you want to know is, for example, the housing cost, meaning the price, the sales price. You might need like a realtor to show you the sales prices of comparable houses 1 year ago compared to now. Because by comparing those two, you'll see if it truly is cheaper to live in Clearview now. So that's what you need to know. And you also
Okay.
need to know the taxes. What is the tax rate in Clearview and what are the tax rates in neighboring towns? We need to know that to be able to say whether Clearview is in fact cheaper, right?
Yes.
And then it makes the claim about natural beauty and consistent climate. Again, the evidence we need is, for example, meteorological reports that show what the average temperature is, the amount of rainfall. All that could tell us whether the climate is consistent or not. And then natural beauty. That's just difficult to say, but there could be some polls or some surveys done of people. And it could talk about whether people feel like their city is beautiful or not and has beautiful views. And you could compare the ratings of those views of the city or views of the countryside to see whether Clearview is better than other cities. So far, is that making sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, that's my example number 2. The other thing I want to let you know, we've kind of gone through most of the content, but I just wanted to mention one more thing, which is you can actually let the test makers score this stuff for you. They now have, for a $20 fee, a partner that is going to be able to score it with an e-reader. So the scoring goes from 1 to 6. And if you go ahead and buy this service, and again, it's completely up to you. I'm not advocating it or not. I'm just saying it's available to you. If you end up doing it, they'll actually score it for you with an e-reader, not a human, but an e-reader who will read through your essay and based on keywords and grammar will give you a score between 1 to 6. That way you'll know how you generally might do on the GRE. So it's actually a very interesting option and something that is not too expensive that could give you some really good information. I suggest if you do this, well, I suggest it is worth it, but only if you have that extra $20. But again, I think it's a good thing to do, and you should do it as close to your test as is reasonable while you still have time to adjust. So I say like about a month before, maybe 3 weeks before, go ahead and do that so you can get a really good, accurate description of what you're doing, but still have 2 to 3 weeks to keep on doing better with your essay writing. So you give yourself a little bit of time to adjust still after you get the feedback. So I want to make sure you all know that that is available to you. All right, well, that's all I have in terms of content for today, but this is just the beginning, not the end. There's going to be a time in your near future where you're going to say, wow, the GRE is coming up a lot sooner than I thought. And I'm going to be near graduation and I'm going to want to go to graduate school. I need to get on the ball on this. So this is just the beginning point for you. It's giving you some ideas to think about. And I wish you a very good journey in the future. With that, I just want to thank you. And here is a short survey I'd like you all to complete. Please use your phones to go ahead and QR code read that. I'm also going to put this in the survey chat. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So Thank you so much. I'm going to put this in the chat now, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you.